Thank you and welcome for this evening about creating a lifestyle that empowers. It's a very practical topic, and I myself like practical things, especially when it comes to spiritual or philosophical questions, like what does that really mean for my life? And yet, I do also appreciate and take personally a lot of benefit to start or with a bigger picture, like with some philosophical or spiritual thoughts and questions. Because for me, often this really deepens my perspective or my take on something, and also brings a sense of purpose to it. So I like to invite you to start with me with a little bit of reflections, and I will ask you a couple of questions, and you might like to listen to them in a bit of a contemplative state of mind, and where you allow to like pictures to emerge, or feelings, whatever you observe in yourself whilst listening to these thoughts and these questions. And you also might like to make some notes, or not, whatever is comfortable for you. Yeah, so later, after that first part of a bigger picture and some thoughts, of course, I will also come to the very practical guidelines or tips for how to make little changes in one's own life, so that our life becomes more supportive to us, and also figure out what maybe is disempowering. So thinking about lifestyle, it's actually something where I would start with what is lifestyle about. It's about me and my life, and that's a matter of a relationship, like how do I relate to my life. And this kind of relationship can be very different, and my lifestyle actually reflects which relationship I have towards my life. Can be a respectful one in which I appreciate my life. It can be a loving one where I love my life. It can also be one in which I'm like indifferent towards my life. That's more disconnected, maybe. It can be one which doesn't feel like my life, like it's more controlled by others or by something. So the question would be, am I connected to my life? How much am I connected to my life? And which kind of relationship do I have with my life? And then how do I understand my life and that relationship? How do I see it as maybe as my creation? Do I see my life as, a piece of art, which I can always improve more or make more beautiful, which I can design? Is my life something which is more like a wonder or a secret that evolves towards me, like step by step? So something more intuitive, maybe. And the title, creating lifestyles or lifestyle that empowers, also indicates that there is a effect from me to my life, of course, but also vice versa. The way I live has an effect on me. So it can be a relation which is empowering, or it can be also disempowering. And I think these very fundamental thoughts and reflections, looking at my own life, already can emerge certain things, certain incidences or things I do or have done, which already kind of give me some perspective on, yeah, really this was disempowering or this was uplifting. And why actually did I do that, and how did I feel when I do this? The philosophy of Raj Yoga is actually a study, you can say, on which looks at which causes lead to which effect. And that's an ongoing observation, actually, any moment, with any thought, with any encounter, with any action we do, everything has an effect. And my lifestyle, and any single piece of it has an effect. And we can study that by try and error, but also by learning something about this philosophy of Raj Yoga, for example, and study it. How does it evolve in my life? How does it work? And the aim is actually to be able to create any moment in a way of my life, in a way that it gives me power. And all aspects of my life which disempower me, to turn them around. So to be so clear and, you can say, knowledgeable about this law of cause and effect, that I consciously can choose and create my moment to moment, and therefore my life and my lifestyle. That sounds maybe quite overwhelming or quite like big, too big. But on the other hand, the beautiful thing is, even if I start with one little thing, the law works. It will turn around things, and it will turn energy around. Today, someone told me that I think the British cycle team was for many, many years not very good. And then some special trainer came and trained them for quite a bit of time, and finally they won the Tour de France. And then this trainer was interviewed, and they tried to understand what his methods were. And there were, I think, many different aspects, but one thing which I understood was about breaking the whole journey from kind of nowhere to the winner into pieces, and see like what are the different aspects which I can improve. And then in each of these little aspects, make 1% improvement, only 1%. And because you do it in different areas, it actually has already a quite big effect, even 1%. And so that's maybe an example which can help us see how we step by step improve. And without seeing the big mountain, or now I have to turn around my whole life, and I don't want to, it's too difficult. But little changes, little adjustments make already a quite big difference. So yeah, that was an interesting thing about what I heard from the UK sport world. And then what kind of purpose do I actually have for my life? Do I have a purpose consciously? And if so, what is it? And my lifestyle is actually Also manifesting means to manifest my values, my worldview, anything which is, important to me, in the world. So that's the bigger step now. In fact, my lifestyle is which is an expression of my consciousness also, is the easiest way to make a difference in the world, to change my lifestyle. Because our life has an impact on our community we live in, and our relationships, and the whole system. And even though one doesn't need to know too much about systems theories, but I think they become more and more popular nowadays because the world has become so complex. And sometimes you feel overwhelmed. How can I make a difference in the world? But actually, what systems theories tell us, that each one of us is like an entity connected to many other entities, and a system, a bigger net, you can say. And so transforming my life makes something with the whole system. It changes something around in the whole system. Actually, the system is a result of each of our lifestyles. And system, I mean, like how we, create our communities, like food systems, transport systems, the way we communicate, all of these things. And I think for me, it's a very inspiring thing to think about, that the moment I create my life in a little bit of a different way, and I give more examples later on, like the food I choose, the transport I choose, the quality of my relationships. The moment I manifest, I embody something of what is important to me. The moment I do something with the whole system, with the whole world, that's, for me, it's inspiring. Because before my spiritual journey started, actually, I also tried to change the world as a political activist, fighting against different things which I felt going quite wrong in the world. And I think, like many activists, I came to a point where I felt like quite hopeless, and I'm feeling, how can I, young little girl, change these big corporates or these big governments? But from a spiritual perspective, it's totally different, because there you have much more you can influence and inspire on an energetical level. And you see that your life is not just your life, it's like, as I said, part of a bigger whole. So yeah, we want to change our life to a life which is not harmful to us, but empowering. And interestingly, the same mechanisms for myself also apply to nature, like the environment, for example. Because when I have a lifestyle which is actually not sustainable for myself, it is not sustainable for the environment too. Like too much consuming it's harmful for the environment. And that's an important context nowadays, where we are more and more people are aware of climate change, for example. And here it feels maybe so different to change, but actually there are so many other opportunities for adjusting a lifestyle to a more environmental friendly one. Again, like more examples will come. I just want to connect to a few points here. Yeah, so that's also a very powerful awareness, that I do have the ability to transform something in the world. Okay, so that was the little introduction, and I hope it made you think. and maybe a few answers or ideas emerged which you might like to share also in the chat. So let's look again at this aspect of relationships. So me and my life. One point in Raj Yoga is always like, who is it actually who lives this life, who creates this life? And my life is an expression of whom. So like, who is that being, who I am? And coming closer to me is a very powerful way, or it puts me in the right position to really become then the creator of my life. Whilst if I'm not really aware of or in contact with my inner self, the being I am, then I'm much more influenced, able to be influenced by society, other people, norms. And then this thing which I mentioned in the beginning, am I living my life, or is my life controlled by something else or someone else? By beliefs where I think this has to be like this, I have to fulfill these expectations and so on. So that's also a very fundamental point. So maybe we can conclude this first part with these points. Like, my life and my lifestyle is a mirror of how I see myself and how much I believe in myself and how much I respect myself. And we understand ourselves as a conscious energy which has the ability to, actually all abilities to change. Because, I mean, sociology says also we are very determined by our upbringing, by the education, by our parents, by the culture of the country we live in. But the moment we go on a path of consciousness or of awareness, we can change everything around. And I can really say that from my own experiences, where I totally turned around all the belief systems or the wishes of my family, my parents, their ideas what a life should be like, because of becoming really honest to myself, asking myself, am I happy with that life? Idea of life? Is that my idea of life? Is that a life which really would bring me to where I like to be? And in my family, there was no one who would be interested in a spiritual lifestyle, for example. And so it was really a point of quite young, when I started that journey to really come into terms with my own self and get in contact with people where I feel they talk about things which are important to me, or they appreciate things which are close to what I feel. So now, becoming really practical, one thing which is so important every morning, every day, we have, I would suggest to have some very, some structures for the day, but also every day in the week can be a bit different, offer different opportunities. For example, the weekend you have more time, maybe because you don't need to work. But even on working days, to make some time in the morning to feed yourself with nourishing food for the soul. That's something which has a big influence, the information we take in. Some people wake up with a radio alarm clock where they start to hear the news, and that can be quite depressive to hear about all these negative things going on in the world early morning. So I suggest to be very picky, very careful with information you take in, especially in the morning. The more you can kind of protect your space in the morning and very consciously create some thoughts or read something from which really kind of inspires you to have a bigger picture on your life, on yourself, which connects you with some values and purpose, that will have an impact on your whole day. And doesn't need to be much, but a few thoughts which touch your heart. But that is what gives you power, which uplifts our consciousness. And it's much more easy than during the day to go back to these thoughts and to keep thinking about them, like on the way to work or when you have a little break or so. And that can even become a habit to, you can start to like thinking about meaningful things in between. And that's an amazing, powerful tool. For me, again and again, I have to make that effort to think more deeply during the day about some, spiritual things. For some people, they have more maybe the nature to contemplate and read and write and so on. But it takes also a certain mood. So it is a practice. And then also whatever comes along in your day, during your day, you can use that to connect it to something spiritual. Right now, when I came to this place where I'm sitting now, I was sitting somewhere and two women were passing the street. And they seemed to be either twins or sisters, probably in the age of 70. And they looked quite alike, but they also had a very different expression on their face. And so I had a few good moments to observe them and scan them. And so one of them, they were both quite like elegant or chic in their dressing, in their way they dressed. And the one was like, I would say a bit more conservative, the way she was dressed, and then the way she looked at me, both looked at me at certain moments, was like she had like a very like a face full of, you can say maybe worries or anger, and she was like an attitude came towards me which was like worrying about the whole world, like an attitude, like being aware of what's all going wrong in this world. And she was very like an accurate person, like very accurate person. And the other one was totally different. Also her clothes were slightly different. She was more having like leisure, also chic, but leisure, and her hands were in her pockets, and she was like slumbering along a little bit, whereas the other one was like very stiff style of walking. And the artist woman, or the one who would look a bit more artistic in her clothing, she had a little glimpse, a little sparkle in her eyes, and she had a little smile in her face, and she was like looking far away in the distance, and like as if she would be not dreaming but contemplating different style of thinking. All of that I could kind of observe in these moments when they were just walking in front of me. And then I was thinking about this topic of tonight, a lifestyle that empowers, creating a lifestyle that empowers. It is really something holistic. I felt like the way you think, you could kind of see it, the expression of their face, in their clothing, in the way they walked, and then both were also looking very similar, as if they might be twins, but so different expressions and lives, obviously. It was very interesting to observe. So what I want to say with this was, on the one hand, you can, when you think about these such kind of things, anything which comes along your path, you can connect and you can use it to understand something more deeply. But also it showed like really how much you can see what is going on in your life, or what your life is. Like it's an energy also. It's like, yeah, it's a whole energy. Very, very interesting. So that's about food for the mind. What do I feed my mind? And morning is important, but also evening is important. So like the last maybe half an hour before we go to sleep, not to consume news again, television or stuff, but to really come down, become introverted, and give your mind something valuable so that you have a good and restful sleep. And then, of course, the more physical food, food we eat, the food for our body, has an amazing impact on our mind. I used to grow up. My parents were hunters, so we had a lot of meat. And then my sister and me, we were in an alternative movement, like, anti-fascism, of course, and punk and these kind of things. And so very aware of what's going on in the world, trying to fight against this and that and atomic energy and so on. In Germany, we don't have atomic energy anymore, like powerhouses, since many years. And so fighting against this and so on. But then the point of food came along, and all my friends, already like 25 years ago, they became vegan, first vegetarian and then vegan. And so my sister and me, we also became vegetarian. And then I could see from one day to another, and I could see from someone consuming quite a lot of meat to someone no meat at all. It really had a big impact on my mental state. And I had no idea of meditation and all of these things. I learned much later about this connection. But it is something where I would just like to invite you to experiment with that. Just try to leave away meat for a few weeks or months and observe yourself what it changes, or also vegan diet. Just experiment with that and see how it changes your feeling of life, feeling your experience, how you feel. Right. So also, of course, fast food, and I don't need to say this. I think everyone knows it. And maybe it's also again a matter of changing beliefs, because I cook my own food every day, and it doesn't take much time. It's just it's very fast. It's like 20 minutes, and or maximum half an hour. I'm not a big cook, but it always tastes, but it's simple and it's enough. And so I cook and take my food to work, so that I know there are good ingredients. It's not like ready-made food, or so. It's fresh, and it doesn't take much work. But it has a big difference, and I always have some good food with me. Like these kind of things are also a big support. One thing I forgot to say: consuming too much food, as well as like food for the body, but also food in terms of information, can make us tired and heavy. And it's like your mind understood as like a machine. You put so much into it and it can't process it at all anymore. And yeah, I don't want to go into that topic, but just to briefly mention our special new experience of the Corona time also came along with lots of information and wrong information and so on. And I could see even my friends who are on a spiritual journey, how much some were affected, like feeling suppressed. And yeah, I mean, there are many reasons, but if just the information pulls me down, then, well, I'm not using the information in the right way, I'm harming myself. And it can happen so quickly. I mean, something triggers us and we are angry and gone in a different direction. Well, very briefly, drugs and substitutes obviously are not only bad for the body, but also for the mind, and makes us dependent, and it reduces being a self-led person, being under control. There is like this whole fundamental shift we have to make, where I'm coming more to in a minute. It's like trying to fill myself with something from outside rather than using all the resources I have, like for example, the ability to think about something uplifting. It takes more effort maybe for the moment, but it's so much more healthy and so much more long lasting, rather than just consuming some alcohol or so, which maybe also uplifts me for a moment. But I'm just saying this because it's actually representing a fundamental pattern, which is the main thing to understand, which is like a bit of a compass for me, where like very simple but very deep laws, which I observe, and with these laws we can navigate through life very well. And it's about, am I taking from outside, or am I using what's inside? Am I giving, contributing? Yeah. So coming to that a little later again. Well, I'm coming to this now because the other big influence, or part of what I would say lifestyle, is the way I cultivate relationships. And relationships with other people or with myself, or as I said, relation to my life in general, there is something which is being exchanged. And the exchange is like about the quality of the relationship. It's where something can become a dependency, or where something is like enjoyable, nice, and uplifting for all. So a big thing I see in many people and myself is expectation. Sorry. So it's kind of a habit to expect something. Expect something from other people, expect something from the government, expect something from an institution, and so on. And I think we can less and less expect something at all, because kind of everyone seems to be in need of something. Any system seems to be vulnerable or damaged in some way and not functioning anymore properly, and or maybe even crashing. So the moment I expect something to be in a certain way, I'm in a difficult situation because I'm dependent on that thing. But can I take that to myself and have a look, what is actually under this expectation? what are the feelings connected to it? Why do I want it? And we will come to the point that there is a need. And then can I take some time to really look at that need and understand that need which I have? Nonviolent communication does that same thing. And in terms of language, also the language you use in relationships can be so violent or so hurting. So without knowing, or being aware of it, but nonviolent communication teaches us to look at the underlying feelings and then the need underneath. And that's what we do in Raj Yoga also, understanding my need. And that's something to unpack. But that's the moment where I take responsibility about myself, my life, my needs. And again, when I do that, and I'm in a very powerful position, because here I'm not expecting and needing anymore. I'm taking responsibility and become like the one who is taking care of myself. So I'm self-led, like fundamentally different. So a moment I identify my needs, and usually there are layers, and when I come to the deepest point, it's like very simple things like I need love, I need appreciation, I need space, I need, these kind of things. Sometimes purpose, sense, more meaning in my life. And so turning inside, connecting to my resources in the soul, in the being I am, there are all of these qualities. There I can, touch my inner ability to love, my truth, my beauty. It's inherent in each one of us. And it's just a matter of reconnecting and getting in touch with who I really am. And the moment I practice this, I can feel this, like tap into that space, and it's just something which I need to do again and again, because I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I realized that there is a huge amount of lack of love. And even though my parents were nice and so on, but every parent also needs something and are in need of themselves. And it's a world which is full of stress. So how much attention can adults really give to their children? And often they're just not aware. So anyway, I think this is a key point in our society, that in childhood, or from childhood onwards, we have not received enough to really be nourished well enough to flourish and to be fulfilled. The moment I realized that, and someone actually helped me to see that, and sometimes it's even connected with guilt or shame, because maybe I've done something wrong, that I'm not lovable or so. But no, it's just the way the world is today. So now I have the ability or the possibility to take care, and I made it a daily practice to fill myself with love, to give myself loving feelings, to really be kind to myself, say a few loving words. And even though it sounds maybe simple, but it has changed my whole attitude and my whole uh, way I deal with myself, I relate to myself, and made me step by step more fulfilled and happier, of course. So yeah, and same with others. If I manage not to expect or want something from others, but just appreciate their presence, I can share what I have. I can create a nice atmosphere. I can, if the topic of the conversation is quite negative or waste or mundane, I can bring something of value. And it can be something very simple. Just sometimes you don't even need to say something. You just bring in a different smile, or do you just appreciate someone or so? And already you have created a different atmosphere. And what I want to say, it's actually fun to turn that around instead of being angry about someone or expecting something, to use a moment, even if you're shopping and you stand in the queue, you can send good, loving feelings or give a smile to someone, and it makes you happy. The first person who is taking benefit from that or who is receiving is you yourself, because you create that energy inside yourself. You are constantly recreating it, so you're filling yourself with it, and then you give it to others, and then their good wishes come to you automatically. The moment you help someone, even if he knows it was you or not, you get something back. That's another law. And in this way, you receive actually a lot. So that's a beautiful way to turn things around as well. As the same way we consume people, we consume other things. We buy a lot often. It's a consumer society. And we know that, I think it's sometimes a bit of a joke, I have a headache, or let me go shopping. Also, what do we do when we shop? Actually, it's such a short time that we really enjoy the thing, and then it's already not interesting anymore. It doesn't give us that feeling anymore. But we pollute our own living space. Like we pollute our flat or wherever we live with a lot of stuff which we don't really need. And so that creates a burden in the end. Like everywhere there's things around and we don't really need them. Anything you don't need but you own is causing a kind of burden. So cluttery, a cluttery place. To sort that out and to get rid of things, and not even in the first place buying them if you don't really need them. Again, it's known, but I think it's important to make the deeper effects of these patterns more aware. Of course, the environment is harmed by that, and I think that's something which we haven't been aware of for such a long time. Anything we buy has had a transport, had been transported with some car or some aeroplane or whatever, had been manufactured, and there's so many processes which actually are harmful for the environment, and we have reproduce these patterns of consumption and production in such an extreme way that we kind of went beyond the ecological boundaries and really hurt the environment, the ecological system, to an extent that's now really in danger, and we will get the backflap, the response. And that's another, I think, motivation should be a motivation to see, okay, A, I don't really need it, B, it creates a burden, and C, it creates our beautiful environment. So let's love a simple life. Let's discover the lightness and the freedom of simplicity in the way I create my room, my living space, and anything else, owning and so on. There is a slogan which I came across, I think simple is beautiful or something like this, and it's true. It is much more beautiful. Again, just turning around some beliefs or some habits. And the third point, what else do I want to share? Yeah, I think that was already. How am I with time? The few practical points. of course, there are more points of lifestyle, you know, things like when to go to bed, when to stand up. It's usually much healthier to go to bed a little more early and then get up a little early, because the atmosphere in the morning is just different. People are sleeping, it's quiet, the atmosphere is not so, you know, polluted by stressful thoughts, and you have your sacred little space. I love the morning hours, so something to explore as well. I think I haven't mentioned meditation, but that's of course a very helpful practice, and also a way of life. We understand meditation as a way of life, in terms that we cultivate an attitude of awareness, of being respectful, and being aware of what I do, away from unconsciousness. And lastly, in meditation, of course, we have a next step of connecting to a higher source of energy. That's usually to start with, in a sitting position, whilst you can also meditate whilst walking or doing things, like in that state of mind. But in the time where we sit in meditation, you can, of course, focus much more. You can connect to that source of energy. It's like a divine being, and full of positivity, full of energy, which is very, very pure and very, very true. And connecting with that quality helps us to empower that same quality which is inside of us. It's like a resonance where that which is part of us, but often since a long time not fully lived, is being empowered and seen and touched in that moment of meditation and connection. So I would say that it's a lifestyle of truth, where you try to, you're going on a journey of really becoming the one you are, whilst letting go of wanting to be someone, trying to play a role, identifying with external things, but really open up to, or realize the beauty which is inside of us, and to step by step empower the self, so that that beauty can get out, can be lived again. And so last part to conclude, back to that maybe bicycle tour method of success, starting from a moment where you feel totally disempowered, maybe, or where you're nearly to a burnout or whatever. It's so hard to work in these systems which we have created, to a happy, free, empowered life. It of course can only go step by step, but it might be quicker as you think, to get into your power. It's just a matter of turning around as many moments you can, moment by moment, turning around my thinking, turning around how I feed myself, turning around the direction in my relationships from taking to giving, and to start to, connect with your own self, be introverted from time to time, so that you kind of save your energy, and try to think less, take in less information. And then you will see after a short time there is a change. And change, maybe you cannot let go of meat immediately, totally, but just have it less, and you see you will feel much better. Okay, I think I have spoken quite a bit, and hopefully not too much, but maybe there are some questions. Jane, can you indicate?
Thank you, Carolyn. One question, lots of interesting things to think about there. One question was when you were talking about giving yourself love, when you're talking about the relationship with self, how can you go about that? Can you say a little bit more about the practical things you might do to do that? Because that might be one of the things that we find hardest. We love other people, we love nature, but loving ourselves can feel the hardest sometimes. So sometimes there's some very practical things to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is the biggest step, I think, for change, the relationship to myself. You know, I always was quite, I think, hard on myself, but I wasn't aware of it. I thought it's normal or so, and so I couldn't really properly estimate myself, and always would kind of compare myself with an unrealistic measurement. There was a point where I felt where I had a lot of challenges, and I was really, really hurt, and that actually was very good, because in that moment I had compassion for myself, and I realized how much I try to do the best I can. I try to, you know, be better and so on. And I was experiencing so much sorrow. And so I just looked at this from a kind of observer point of view, and really it touched my heart, and I felt, well, I really have to support myself, and I have to be kind to myself. And well, I think part of it is talking to yourself and listening to yourself. And there are beautiful methods also, like the inner child conversations, where you talk to that part inside of you which is hurt, listen to it. But also sometimes you can just, you know, put your hand on your heart, or on your shoulder, or on your stomach, and breathe deeply. Spend some relaxing time, and then it's the thoughts, it's the feelings, it's the attitude, where you can explain to yourself, you know, look, would you be that hard to anyone else, like to another child? And then look at yourself from an outside perspective, and try to make yourself see how much you try to be good, and how much you actually do, and with maybe very little energy. It's much more difficult when you're down, or when you feel drained, and then to be good, and even then we try. And so really anyone else we would encourage, and especially children, we would encourage, and we are children, everyone, every adult is a child in this inside. So let me really have compassion for myself, and make myself see my goodness. And sometimes you can also ask and someone whom you trust, and then ask them to estimate, or to help you see the good in you. And well, I also, because my thinking was quite depressive and negative, and I just practice to, with simple mantras like, Karen, everything is good. Everything is good. Like very simple sentences, but they were immediately turning my inner energy around. And it was so important. And so I just repeated these sentences, and everything is good, and you are good, and you're lovable, and I love you. And just these sentences, I repeated them again and again until I felt better. And I still sometimes say this to myself, and yeah, it's so uplifting. It's, yeah, I hope that was an answer.
Thank you, Carolyn. That's almost a whole subject of another evening's talk, isn't it? Looking after the inner child. There's no more questions. So, and it's just coming up to 7:30. So I'd like to say thank you to you, Carolyn, for that talk. Lots and lots to think about in there.